You are listening to the Let Me Overthink About It podcast, where I dive into a series of topics that occupy my anxious mind. I'm Sam Medor, overthinker extraordinaire. This week, I'm overthinking about dreaming, scheming, and creativity with Crawford. Crawford won MasterChef Canada in 2019 and is a pro wrestler under the name Moon Miss and just an all over awesome human. I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did. I am here with Crawford. Hello, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching on YouTube, folks, we've got a dog in our presence. Who do we have here with you?
Oh yeah, let's see if she'll want to do a hug. This is Daisy.
Daisy.
This is
Oh my
Daisy.
God. Anybody who listens to my podcast regularly knows how much of a dog lover I am. So thank you for joining us, Daisy. I love
she'll
it.
probably chime in at she'll probably chime in at some point.
Fair enough. That's why I have mine trapped somewhere else in the house because guaranteed, like I have one dog who likes to hump my leg regularly. So it's like I just try to keep those distractions away from the podcast.
Oh, that yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a dog trainer. Let's just put it that way. What a great way to start the podcast.
I love it.
I love it. So, thank you so much for joining. I, of course, met you at the Swell Atlantic Conference, which was almost like a year and a half ago, I guess now.
Yeah, it feels like a decade somehow.
I know it's this weird limbo that we're living in with like pandemicness, where it's like it either feels like it was just yesterday or it feels like it's been like 9 years.
It's been a
Yeah,
lot of living, right?
yeah,
Like
it really has
a
been.
lot of stuff. Yeah.
And so, for folks who are listening who aren't familiar, I mean, I could read through, and of course, you can read the show notes for bios and all kinds of good things. But I would just like you to give us a little sneak peek into your Master Chef experience and your transition to a wrestler. I love it.
Oh
Your
yeah.
Reader's Digest. Well, actually, and I just want to say this because I did read your article, or I think it was through CBC, but correct me if I'm wrong. And I have it written down here how Master Chef winner became trash talking pro wrestler Moon Miss. Like, you don't
Yeah.
get a much better headline than that, I got to tell you.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things that if I had seen it 7 years ago, I would have been like, oh, like someone wrote an Onion article about me. Okay. Like none of that. I wouldn't have understood a single sentence in that whole article, you
I
know?
love it. Like,
Yeah.
how does, and I guess it's a big question to start with, but I'm thinking more like how do you get there? How do you start as, a MasterChef contestant slash winner, and then all of a sudden, not long after, you are, as they said, a trash talking wrestler.
Man, well, I feel like this is a great example of well, two things. One, things are never what they seem to be on the internet. It
Yes.
definitely wasn't just like, oh, you were this and then you were that real quick. There are story arcs that go decades back, and like there's just so much that people don't see, you know?
Yes.
So like whenever like that's why it's so dangerous to do this sort of comparison game of stuff online. Like it might look like overnight I became a wrestler, but like
Yeah.
man, I've been grinding at that since well, yeah, for close to a decade, like pre Master Chef even. Like I had
Oh, amazing. I didn't realize that.
I know most people don't. I don't talk about it super often. And
Yeah.
also, I think like it doesn't make for as catchy of a headline. Like, you know, some guy tries to be a wrestler, hits bottom, and then goes on a reality show, and then there's a pandemic, and then tries wrestling again. Do you know what I mean? It's not. It's
Listen,
not
not quite as catchy, I'll give you that.
like it's not because like like the things that we're reading online like this it's all like that article's true like and also just yeah there's always more. I think like
Yeah.
anytime we're reading stuff like that there's always more. The second thing I think about that is like coming on the podcast and just thinking about the
Overthinking?
overthinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
um I've been reflecting on and just kind of sitting with like the idea of thinking itself anyway because like I couldn't like like I said, like I couldn't have thought up that article.
Right.
I couldn't have thought up a single part of it. Like there are limits to my, like I'm pretty
Yep.
creative, but there are like limits to my like thinking and creative capacity that like
Yep.
it thinking isn't going to be the thing that gets me where I want to go usually.
Right. Yeah. Fair.
You know, like in like to a certain extent, like it
Yep.
is part of it all. But also like my best thinking couldn't have come up with like everything that's happened over the last like 6 7 years.
Do you identify as an overthinker? Like when when I reached out to you and said, "Hey, want to be on my podcast about overthinking?" Do you would you identify as an overthinker, as somebody who, and I always associate overthinking, I guess, with the anxiety in me.
Yeah,
Um, does that resonate with you?
I think I'm like an overthinker in recovery.
Okay. I
I
like
think
that. How did you get there? Because I'm not there yet.
I try so hard. I think I everything that I like went through pre sobriety. Like I got sober just over 6 years ago now. I just celebrated 6 years on
Oh,
Monday. Um,
congratulations.
yeah, thanks. I didn't realize, but like for most of my life, I really over intellect. I thought I was feeling my feelings, but I was
Yeah.
intellectualizing my feelings.
Oh,
Like to the
interesting.
point where I like literally studied like feelings and bodies in school for like a decade.
Wow.
So like would um read everything I could, like read all this research, like read all the things, and I would think about it like it was like an ongoing um like a hamster wheel on like I don't know 160 beats per minute dance music
Yep.
going, like 10 hamster wheels. Like it was just all of the time. And when I came into recovery and then like the first couple years of that, I think having the realization that like, and I kind of just spoke about this, that like my best thinking was not going to be the thing that got me out of the mess I was in. Like
Right. Yep.
it was often the thing that made the messes I found
Yeah.
myself in.
Yep.
So I have spent the last 6 years really intentionally trying to develop more faith in um, the wisdom of like my body and the wisdom of
Mm.
like intuition and even I want to say like my ancestors. Like
Wow.
spirituality is pretty new for me in the last few years,
Right.
but
Yep.
I'm like I if it feels real to me and it feels really like it makes my life a lot better. So who can I kind of abandoning all of the um oh, but how does it work? Like think like figure it out type way I would do stuff before that mostly just exhausted me. So
Mm.
I feel like I've been really trying to um and I don't mean this in an anti-intellectual way. I love thinking about stuff. Like I love
Yep.
like exploring, and I'm so like I'm really curious about a lot of things. I love like I was a researcher by trade for many years. Like I love going down rabbit holes, and
Yep.
um, but also I've just been trying to think a little less so I can have more room to
Just be,
just
just
be more.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or like
It's,
have faith in like our intuition, like because
yep.
I do feel like when my mind is more quiet, I feel like I do have like an inner knowing or like an inner, like those divining rods that like pull you to water. Like
Yep.
it
Yep.
it feels like I have one of those in my guts, like when I'm able to get out of my own way and pay attention to the sensations that are happening
Yep.
in my body, like the actual feelings that are happening. Like my body often knows before I do when a
Oh
situation
man.
is wrong for me.
Yeah. 100%. And I actually had a conversation with my naturopath just this morning
Oh
about
yeah.
almost exactly what we're saying, just in terms of
Ah.
knowing, like, I know my body more than anybody does, obviously, but also just being able to trust that when I sense that something's off or when I feel like, you know, this A caused B, chances are I'm probably right because I live in my body every day. And so, just relying a little bit more on my own intuition.
Yeah. And like our bodies are so wise, right? Like,
Oh, gosh, yeah. Way more wise than our brains.
yeah, like there's some stuff that just happens below the level of cognition or above the level
Yep.
of cognition. I don't know, like outside of what I am capable of thinking anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck actually on you saying that. I love that you put it in those terms and of like not being able to think up that article. Like it just gives different
Oh yeah.
perspective to how your life sort of flows or how things happen. And I would often call
Yeah.
that like trusting the universe too, but
Yeah.
I like it more in terms of trusting myself than trusting that, there's a bigger thing out in the I mean, I believe that to be true as well in some capacities,
Yeah.
but I like it as trusting yourself. I love that.
Yeah, I feel like that about the universe too. It's a co-created project we're
Yeah,
working
right.
on,
We're
you
working
know?
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. So I just want to go back to 6 years sobriety because that's a huge milestone. It's incredible. And I love that you said the word
Thanks.
celebrate because I
Yeah.
feel like that absolutely 100% is something to celebrate. And I'm so glad that you do. I think sometimes people forget to celebrate or to look at things like that in way, like in that way as like an accomplishment for you and a celebration for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll take all the celebrations I can get. You know?
Right.
I think like
Oh
one of
man.
the oh gosh, it's like I'm trying to find the most linear way into what I want to say, which is that I did as part of getting sober, like 8 months into sobriety, I did a trauma treatment program at CAMH, which is the mental health
Yeah.
hospital in Toronto. Anyway, as part of that, they talk about, and I've seen this come up a bit online recently. They talk about glimmers, like the moments where your nervous system feels safe and excited, and
Yep.
like you know like the moments that make us feel spontaneous joy and delight and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
um, so part of that program was talking about intentionally, like, one, creating the conditions for those. Like, you can't just be like, okay, time to make joy, but like you can create the conditions
Yeah.
where it's more likely to happen probably. um,
Totally.
but then something that I thought was really special about it is um, when you are having those, to like do everything you can to make them stick, like the same way that we overthink about the hard stuff.
Yep.
Then
Oh,
go all in on the stuff that makes you feel like sparkly and safe, and um, like you're having just, you're thrilled to your marrow. Like, take a picture of it,
yes.
write a poem about it, like text your friend about it, write a blog post about it, make some art about it, make a meal about it. Like anything you can to make those moments stick. Anyway, that's how I feel about the sobriety stuff as well, and like all the different. I mean, I have all my own little private milestones that I
Sure.
honor along the way as
Yep.
well. Yeah, just as many as I can, because why not? Like,
Because why
why
not?
not?
That's the thing. And when you
Yeah.
said, like, when you said that about overthinking the positive things as much, like, for whatever reason, as silly as this sounds, it's like a new concept to me. Like, oh, yeah, like you
Oh
can also
yeah.
overthink good things. Like, because I often
Yeah.
think, like I said, I associate it often with anxiety and like the thoughts that creep in that just won't stop or that will just kind of eat away at my confidence or eat away at whatever that is. But when you say, yeah, of course, overthink the great things too.
Yeah, like I want to, like, just for anyone who like does have anxiety, and as someone who has definitely had, I mean, like, I was in the late stages of PTSD, like at the end of my kind of drinking years, and it was I was frightened. I was terrified all of the time. Like, I
Yep.
think, like, on the surface, like, no one would have guessed because I was so good at, like, that stoic
Yep.
kind of just feel the fear and do it anyway. And now I'm like,
Sure.
man, like, like, our bodies are so smart. Like, when it gets to a state where it's like, I'm scared all the time, like, it, like, our instincts are so smart. I actually had, like, many reasons, like, many valid reasons, to feel frightened and threatened, and like, my
Yep.
body had lived through enough that it was like, no, we like, we're not so sure about this, and I
Yeah.
kept pushing through and ignoring it. um I don't know, I think I just want to honor, like, the wisdom of fear. Like, I don't it's not always a bad thing. It's like our body trying to take care of us and keep us safe.
Yeah.
And, like, part of healing for me was, making peace with that feeling when it would come up, like the heart racy, dry mouth, like that. I could be like, yo, I really appreciate it. I see what you're trying to do here. And
Yep.
also, I've got this. Like, thank you so much. And I've got this. Like, just sort of trying to, like, create kind of a dialogue with the
Sure.
feeling when it comes up,
Yeah. Because
Um,
it's going to come up. Like if you
oh,
struggle,
always.
anybody who struggles with, well, anybody, period, but also particularly anybody who struggles with their mental health, you know, there's no like snap your fingers and all of a sudden I'm okay. I'm not going to be anxious anymore, period. So there
Yeah.
has to be, right? Wouldn't that be
No.
great?
No, like, have you tried just feeling better?
Yeah,
Like,
like
that kind of.
oh God. Or my
Oh
favorite
man.
was, and I don't want to get too down this rabbit hole, but my favorite was I had a
Yeah.
family doctor who was like, I was first coming to terms with the fact that I struggled with depression and anxiety, and my doctor who said, "What do you have to be upset about?" And I couldn't even believe the words coming out of her mouth. And that's exactly it though. It's like, some people I think genuinely believe that there is a face for people who have depression or there is a face for people who struggle with anxiety. And it's like that just is not the case. It can be, like you said, you're stoic, you have the capacity to hide your feelings. That happens all the time with people with mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
lost my train of thought a little bit there. I can't remember where I was going with that, but because of course I get sidetracked talking about my doctor. But I just think for
Oh.
me, if yeah, sorry.
It's like the train's out of the station. We can go wherever we want.
We're going wherever we're going. That's the beauty of these
Yeah.
conversations. But I think for someone with anxiety in particular, it's like, and I always talk about depression and anxiety working against each other, right? Because it's like your anxiety is the thing that's questioning all of the things, and then your depression is the thing that's keeping you from all of the things. And so it's just this
Mm-hmm.
battle within your own self. And I can't imagine, throwing not throwing, but PTSD, like you mentioned, on top of that, and then also having, addiction issues and that sort of thing. It's just, there's no two situations that are the same.
There are, and oh my gosh, this is another thing about thinking that I would love to bring up. Because, like,
I love it.
I don't take my thoughts too seriously anymore. Because, like,
Oh,
the drama with which they can change in like 2 minutes is hilarious. And, like, being able to just, not, I'm not sure how to put this, but I don't take my own feelings too personally now. Like, not in a, I just don't attach to them in the same way that I used to. Um,
hmm,
but, like, being able to create that tiny bit of separation between, like, yourself and your thoughts, to be, because, I'll
totally.
be fully, like, believing. I mean, like,
Oh
like,
yeah,
I'm not like a Zen master or anything. Like, there are days where I'm like, wow, I am the absolute worst. What an imposter. Wait until everyone finds out I'm actually, like, not good at anything and the absolute worst. And then, like, 10 minutes later, we'll be like, yo, I can't wait for this wrestling show. I'm so excited to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, like, just the cacophony of stuff. Like,
it warms my heart to hear other people say these things because, like, and I, not that I'm happy that you feel that way,
Oh
But
yeah, yeah.
I'm happy that, when people put it in those terms because it's the same for me. It's like I can, and usually for me, it's the morning. Like I can feel so productive in the morning because I'm a morning person. And then
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, by the afternoon, I'm useless. Like why am I even bothering? Like I'm never going to be successful at this, blah, blah, fill in all of those blanks. And the
Mm-hmm.
shift is just, it's just like it feels insane.
Like it's astonishing, right? When you're able
Yeah.
to, like, because I think this is a pretty normal part of the human condition, actually, to go through this whole range of human
Yes.
emotion. Like, and
Yeah.
especially like, my God, social media is so new. We have no idea really what it's doing to our brains. Like,
Oh
when
man.
you think of like the whole of human history and this tiny little blip where we've now been
Yeah.
saturated with this kind of volume of information,
Yeah.
like we just our poor minds. you
Honestly.
know,
Yes.
like being able to just give ourselves permission to feel all the things, think all the things, and also create like that just enough room that we're not like um it's like we're surfing them instead of getting like pulled under by every single one, because I think I used to just every
Okay.
thought would just pull me under,
Yeah,
like
yep.
like every thought I was just underwater all the time with it, and it felt like that was reality. Like those thoughts felt like reality, and it's not to say
100%.
like they're not. I'm not saying it's like not real, like when I'm feeling it, because I
Yeah.
feel it, but there's a bit of peace in that um, tiny bit of space. Yeah, I don't know what else to call it. It feels like there is. It's like and now I'm on the sidewalk, like watching those cars go by, like all those
Right.
thoughts,
The thoughts or the
as opposed,
cars. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't get in the car. I don't have to get in every single car and take it to the end of the line anymore.
Oh
you
man,
know?
you're throwing out the analogies. I'm loving this because the visual of what you're saying is so great. Like, first of all, going back to the surf, like you're surfing the
Yeah.
thoughts. I love that visual. But now, especially this one, where it's like, I'm not getting in that car because it's not like, yeah, it's not taking me anywhere I want to go.
Because some of the cars, like you see them, like do you know what I mean? The thing you see it pulling up, and you're like, wow, I know where
Yes.
this one's going. And there's
Yes.
like sometimes it'll happen where I'm like, I feel it happening, and I'm like, oh damn, I got in the car. But like maybe I get off at the next exit as opposed to like
Yeah.
being a whole road trip, and like I catch it sooner and sooner so that I can finally just be like, oh, that car again, and like not even
Oh
get in.
man. This analogy is my life now. You just gave me my whole new
Okay.
perspective for my life is just picturing getting in the wrong car or like some beat up old pickup truck that you're just like,
Yeah.
what am I
Yeah.
even?
Yeah. What are we doing here? I think
What are we doing here? How did we get
I,
here? Oh,
I can't imagine I've made this up. Like I must have heard it at some point. I listened to I this is somewhat related. Like I started on my like very I guess it was also my 6 year anniversary with doing meditation stuff, because like on my first day of sobriety, I was in such mental anguish and misery. Like the thoughts were so fast, I couldn't put my finger on any of them, and I was just
hmm.
so desperate. That's what it would have taken, like for me to try meditation. I was so desperate for a reprieve
Right.
that I was like, I will try literally anything.
Yeah.
And I was doing literally only 2 minutes at a time because that was all I could stomach. But even for like in one of those breaths, like during those 2 minutes, that I had like a tiny bit of a break, I was oh, like it that could maybe get longer. Like that felt kind of nice,
Mm.
Anyway, that's kind of like how I feel like the car analogy must have come up at some point, like in the last six
Hey,
years in those.
until we find out for sure, we're totally crediting you with it. So it's all good.
Okay.
We'll do some research.
Okay, cool.
And so when you were at CAMH, was that the beginning of your sobriety or or are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah, yeah, I am. That was about 8 months in, and I had actually been on the wait list since like well before, like the summer before I
Oh,
got into
okay.
recovery.
Yep.
Um, I was on. I will never forget this. I was on the wait list for treatment from the day that I went to my family doctor and said, like, I cannot imagine another day, let alone a whole life. Um,
Mm.
it was 396 days from that day to when I walked into treatment.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like, there are, we'll never know, like, the people who don't get to make it to
No.
treatment.
One day, let alone, or one step, one step in front of the other, and one day, and then 1 month, and then 396 days is a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't say that in a like, it's still like, I'm so glad that that program is available and accessible to people.
Oh,
And
for sure. Yeah.
it changed my life, obviously. But man, um, the demand for these services definitely outweighs what is available.
Well, and to think too, that was 6 years ago. And now imagine, like, I just think we talked about the pandemic already, like how,
Hmm.
how much that would compound the higher need for services like that and people in
Hmm.
isolation and all of those things that happened in the last 3 years that we've sort of just kind of glossed over in some ways, but they're still affecting us each day.
Oh yeah, I literally like 2 days ago started therapy like for some pretty specific stuff like around like COVID, like the
Yeah.
ongoing pandemic, like
Yeah.
risk mitigation, like how to because this is not going anywhere, and like trying
No.
to the cognitive dissonance between this is a real thing that is happening and
Yes.
then our governments largely and public health largely abandoning us to just make decisions as we will.
Yes.
I'm like, I need some help specifically around that, man. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, the ongoing, I just feel like there will be more and more things as the years go
Oh,
by.
for sure. And you think we're,
Yeah.
in our 40s. Like you think about, you were talking about social media too, like kids who grow up with social media, that's all they really know. And then also in the middle of a pandemic, like we don't even know the half
Hmm.
of where the impact of that is going to go
Yeah.
on people's mental health.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Unreal. So, I want to talk about Moon Miss.
Cool.
Um, First of all, I love the name Moon Miss.
Thanks.
Just
It's kind of
love it.
it's kind of related to stuff we were talking about. It's related to like the if something brings you a lot of like delight, like make it stick in any way you can. Blow like make it huge. Like do whatever you
Yeah.
want to like make it even bigger. So I mean, like I said before, like write a poem about it, like make a meal about
Yeah.
it, take a picture of it, make a pro wrestler about it. Like why? Why not? Like
Why not?
why
And
not?
I loved to, because you've made reference, and I don't know if this was at the Swell conference or somewhere along the way that I've been following along with your story, is has something to do with your dog. And of course, I've already mentioned I'm a huge dog person. It's actually, we're recording this on the day that my heart dog, Hank, he died in 2019, and it's his birthday today. So I
Oh,
still wake up and
Hank.
he's every part of my heart when I wake up we're recording this on February 8th. And I loved that your dog, I think it's Tega, was it Tega? Was sort of
Yeah.
part of your Moon Miss character. And I was like, I just anyone who can, love and respect that connection with the dog, I just love so much.
Well, like how Daisy Daisy is giving me a big hug right now. Are you trying to say hi to Hank?
Daisy knows we're talking about dog lovers.
He knows.
I love it.
Wow.
So maybe go
Oh.
back to the inspiration for Moon Miss. Like you said that Moon Miss is that joy that you sort of brought and celebrate. Were there other inspirations that influenced that character for you?
Yeah, I got to work out like a bunch of stuff through and with Moon Miss, which is like I had the idea for the character pre-autism diagnosis. Like I got,
Okay.
I was diagnosed as autistic maybe a couple months after. Um,
Okay.
but like a pretty common experience for autistic folks, like not across the board, but for many of us, is this feeling of like we got dropped off here, like from outer
Okay.
space, and we're
Yep.
like, what? Like we do not understand what we're supposed to be doing. How is it that everyone else seems to like intuitively know what's
Right.
going on here? But like,
Yep.
wow, I am not of this place, and I don't know why, and I can't make any sense of it. Um, so part of Moon Mist was like kind of working out some of those feelings as well, and it felt so poetic to be able to like access a diagnosis during. Oh yes, Daisy, to access a diagnosis like during that process and like during training and everything. It made it feel like extra special. Um,
Oh, yeah. It all sort of came
yeah,
together around the same time, which, yeah, that's the
yeah,
universe looking out for you right there. See? It all comes back to that. You had mentioned earlier that wrestling, the idea what or the concept was, oh, overnight you became a wrestler. What was the motivation? That wasn't the case. Obviously, you had worked years at becoming a wrestler. What was the motivation for going down that path for you?
oh yeah. Well, like I grew up watching wrestling, and I was always just dazzled by the over the top gender things, like on.
Mm,
I was gonna say both sides, but it's not like there was two. There's a million. Like there was so many like just different ways of like doing masculinity and like doing
yep.
femininity and both at the same time, like for like the men as well as the women, when I was watching early years, and I just found it so um, grand, and there was something about that very fancy masculinity, like the big um, feather poofy things and the sequence and the
Yeah.
oiled bodies and the slicked hair and oh my god, Razor Ramon's toothpick. Like I didn't know if I wanted a toothpick or to like be that toothpick. Like it was all so like confusing and exciting to me.
I'm
Um,
having a reaction to you bringing up Razor Ramon right now because I was just, as you were talking, I was like, I have to mention, I used to love watching wrestling with my dad when I was a
oh
kid.
yeah,
It's like one of my favorite memories of of my time with my dad when we were, because my parents ended up getting divorced. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with my dad when we were growing up, and so those are like really strong memories. And Razor Ramon was my favorite, and I would do like the impression. Like I'd get the toothpick and I would do a Razor Ramon impression. I was like, I was in love.
understandable.
Right?
Like yeah, no, I
Just
think we
and
all
as you
were.
said that about I don't know if I wanted to be the toothpick or him, I was like, that actually kind of makes sense. The toothpick. Like anyway, I just nerded
Yeah.
out with you a little bit on that as well. I love it.
Yeah. I was always yeah, man, it just was so magical and it was like it was its own whole other world. Like it was
Yeah.
like the something about the world making was so just I don't know, it was like just fantastic to me. And I was always drawn to it and yeah, like I guess the last couple years, like about 8 years ago, I took like a pretty solid run at training. Like while I was in Toronto, like I was going to a training
Yeah.
school. Oh my gosh, I was training like at least 3 or 4 times a week, plus like all my powerlifting training, plus working a full time job. Like I was
Wow.
just, and yeah, but like the thing that was really interesting, and this relates to some of the stuff we were talking about before, is like I didn't know like how bad I didn't even know that I had PTSD at that point, and I didn't
Right.
know how bad it was because I had been ignoring the signals from my body for so long,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that it just felt very normal until the symptoms became so pronounced that there was like no getting around it. Like, wow, something's really not okay here. Like, because like I'm watching all my my training partners like do these things that are you know what I mean, like locking up,
Yep.
headlock. Like my body got to the point that it didn't know the difference between like we are pro wrestling and like
Right.
I'm going to die. Like I'm like, oh, I'm being jumped. Like
Okay. Yeah.
my like my body just didn't, it had taken it had experienced those things enough times for real
Yeah.
that experiencing it in this realm, it was like, no, absolutely not. Like this, no,
Yeah.
this feels too real right now. Like we have some stuff that we have to heal before we can
Yep.
continue on this path. But I mean, like that, I ignored all those signals.
Of course. Yeah.
Because yeah, I think like that feeling of just like wanting to power through, like no, power down, man. Like just
And just
power
like you
down.
said, it all comes back to that, like that your body knows, before you do, right? It's telling you.
Yeah, yeah. In no uncertain terms too, right? Like
Yeah.
I could, because like I mean I could mask it pretty well while I was at training.
Yeah.
Um, but there was things like you're not able to learn as well when you're in fight or flight all of the time.
That's
So
right.
things now, like when I pick stuff up now, and it seems like I pick things up pretty fast. Hi, sweetheart. Um, like the, I couldn't. I would spend weeks drilling like the same very basic things back then, and it just
Yeah.
it wouldn't stick. Like I couldn't take it in,
Right.
which was really it was really frustrating, and yeah, it felt, I guess, scary,
Right.
because I couldn't see the way out at the time. But it feels like such a I don't know. It's such. I just love the wrestling community here so much in Nova Scotia, particularly too. Like I love to talk about them every chance I get because they
Yeah.
took such good care of me and were such a like. It became such a safe place to like advance my healing even further.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever made like if because there was sometimes moves that would give me would just send me like my symptoms would like kind of
Right.
spike for a minute, and they would like my coach Troy Merrick, I love him so much, would be
Yes.
really like, no, like we're asking your body to do something it really would not normally want to do. It makes sense under any circumstance that it would be questioning this. um,
That's
like it
so
was
great.
so validating and supportive, and
Supportive. Yeah.
yeah, it was really, it's what made it possible for me. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to, I don't know. Yeah, I can't separate Moon Miss from these amazing people like Troy. And then like New Scott is another person who was just so supportive and helped me feel like safe, and continues to like helps me feel like
Yeah.
safe and empowered to go out and do these things.
Totally. And so,
Yeah.
and where are you now with Moon Miss? Because I know you had an injury. What's next?
Moonwist has a show coming up with Troy Merrick's new promotion. It's called DIY Wrestling, and it's going to be at the Sanctuary Arts Center in Dartmouth.
Oh,
And then
fun.
next month on March 17th, Pro Wrestling Unleashed is back at Propeller Arcade, and Moon Miss will be there to defend their title belt,
Oh,
which I'm
man.
very excited about. And then I have a couple, or well, Moon Miss has a couple other bookings coming up this summer that I am not at liberty to talk about yet.
Oh, I love teasers.
Yeah. And then also just like Moon Miss has given me so many other opportunities, like which is really
Yeah.
funny too. Like I've gotten to do like I got to write and co-produce like a documentary about them with the CBC. Like that's
Yeah.
again, like I couldn't have thought of that 7 years ago.
Right.
Like now I like my resume is so weird, man. Like
Right.
I don't really have one anymore. Like
Right. Fair
people
enough.
have asked me to no, this happened recently. Someone asked me to forward my resume and I was like, like
No.
I actually can't. Like, can you just look at my Instagram? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty awesome. And I love but you've set it in motion, right? With Moon Miss, with these conversations that you're having and being open and talking about your sobriety and helping people. Think it's just you've set that in motion, and I think it's going to take you to places you wouldn't normally think of, right? Which it already has.
Oh yeah, like I try to think of it like where I was talking about this recently. Like it feels like life is just this like ever expanding universe, and like we really sometimes can't imagine the what's to come. Like we can, I do think like dreaming and scheming and creativity are such an important part of like imagining futures full of like justice and freedom for everyone. Like I want
Yeah.
to encourage all the dreaming and scheming possible, and also just being open to the surprising ways we might end up getting there. You know,
Oh,
like the universe. I feel like when we're doing that kind of creative um, uh, work of like liberation, like the universe will rise up to meet us with like even better things than we could ever imagine. Um, I just have faith in that.
I love that. Do all of the dreaming and scheming. That is my biggest
Yeah.
takeaway from this conversation, I think. Because
Oh, good.
really, yeah. Oh, well, there's other things too, lots of great nuggets, but I just love that because why not? Like you said before, why not?
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Thank you so very much. Thanks again to Crawford for overthinking with me, dreaming, scheming, creating all of the good things. And thanks again to the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. I'm so appreciative of your support. Thanks for listening.